What's up guys, welcome to another video. So I finally decided to play Spider-Man on the PlayStation 4. At the time it was Insomniac's highest selling game, and it led to Sony buying Insomniac after all these years. Well, I was actually surprised how Sony didn't buy them back then. But is this a game that's actually worth playing, or is this a game that should be forgotten? Let's find out. While Insomniac isn't my favorite, but I can't deny that they're a great studio. Their first game was called Disruptor. This is, from what I know, a clone of Doom, one of the best Doom clones. The cutscenes are actually pretty hilarious. They're so bad they're good.
Pioneering the field of psionic weapons, but my experiences in uniform built a foundation of service, loyalty.
After that, of course, they made Spyro the Dragon trilogy, but Spyro was owned by Universal at the time, so they didn't really do anything after that with the series. But after that, they started the Ratchet & Clank series. The Ratchet & Clank series became one of the most famous platforming series in the PlayStation 2, and would later on become one of Sony's official mascots. And you probably noticed that back then Naughty Dog and Insomniac were really close. Like they had Easter eggs of each other, like for example the demos in the Crash games and Spyro games. And then there were some Easter eggs for Ratchet & Clank and Jak and Daxter between each other. However, starting with the PlayStation 3, both developers started going their own way a little. Like Naughty Dog became focusing more on movie cinematic games like Uncharted and The Last of Us. Well, more focusing on The Last of Us actually nowadays. Insomniac on the other hand was still experimenting. They made the Resistance series, but they were also making Ratchet & Clank series. If anything, I would say they made the most first party games for the PlayStation 3 than any other studios. Well, after the San Diego studio, or the one that makes MLB games, I mean. But anyway, they were experimenting between Resistance series and Ratchet & Clank series. The Resistance series is an FPS game. It's always seen as amazing, but they decided to abandon it and never do anything after the third game. Ratchet & Clank, on the other hand, they have been trying to make some games for it, but they made too much that the quality became worse and shorter. Well, they're still great, but just not as good as before. They did make a few third-party games at the time, like Everybody's Gone to the Rapture and Fuse, most of which were mediocre at best. They also made the Sunset Overdrive, a game that Microsoft owns the publishing rights, so it will never be ported to PlayStation, even though it's owned by Insomniac. I heard it's a great game, but not really successful. After that, they made the Ratchet & Clank game on the PlayStation 4, which you probably noticed by now that the Ratchet & Clank series won't be milked as much as before. It will be one game per console, according to the leaks. But after that, they released Spider-Man. This game was actually made a deal by Sony and Marvel. They weren't really planning to make a Spider-Man game, but rather a Marvel game in general, and Insomniac chose Spider-Man. The game is actually so successful that, according to the leak, Insomniac will focus more on Marvel games, and the Ratchet & Clank game every once in a while. Now that I said all of that, let's get to the main game itself. Spider-Man on the PlayStation 4 is actually a completely original story. It has absolutely nothing to do with any Marvel related stuff. Like, it's not tied to any comic, it's not tied to any show, movie, cartoon, whatever you want to call it. It's an original character and an original Spider-Man as well. But at the same time, it's canon. It's basically its own universe, as you have seen in the Spider-Verse movies. This one basically focuses on an adult Peter Parker. Like, he's basically 23 years old and he finally graduated, and now he's been working for 8 years as a Spider-Man. Well, I won't spoil much of the story, but the game has way too many villains. Like, it's not like Spider-Man 3 bad. Actually, that's a good thing. Like, there are way too many villains you can see, like Kingpin, Mr. Negative, Electro, and so many more. While you do a lot of side quests that are really fun, the story is actually pretty interesting. While I wouldn't say it's the best, but it's actually a pretty fun game and a great story. There's like tons of side quests that you can do here. Some are actually pretty creative, like the Black Cat ones where you have to find certain objects. But there are also some bad ones, like most notably the Screwball one. This is one of the villains in the game, a side villain, which I actually never heard of until I played the game. Probably the worst villain in the series, but I can understand actually. She's interesting, but at the same time she's lame. The swinging is actually pretty fun here. Like, there is fast travel, but I actually almost never used it. Well, I only used it like a few times, mainly for the trophy. There are also skins, or to be more specific, Spider-Man suits you can unlock here, which are really awesome. Some are already unlocked because of updates. Some you'll have to play to unlock them, and some will be unlocked only if you play the DLCs. which I'll talk about later. There is a mission that I heavily recommend you do first, the Oscar Towers. You have to fix these Oscar Towers in order to see the map. If you don't do it, you will not be able to see the map while playing. So this is basically annoying, and I do admit that while side quests are great, they can be a little repetitive in the end. Well, this is really not a problem with the game itself, but a problem with beat 'em up games in general. The skins are actually pretty great, like they have some skins have their own powers which you can customize as well. Like some of them are based in the movies, like Spider-Man, Sam Raimi one, the Amazing Spider-Man movies. There's the MCUs, like so many more really. It's really amazing. The customization is great. The gadgets that you use to fight enemies is actually amazing as well. You obviously want to know about the missions for Mary Jane Watson's. Well, I honestly didn't find them as bad as many are saying. Like it's a stealth mission that's super easy, I won't deny it. Same for Miles Morales missions, which are also in the game by the way if you don't know. But they're really easy, and there are 8 missions in total, 4 for Miles and 4 for MJ. Mary Jane here is actually the best one yet. Like she's not like as annoying as in the comics, nor as slutty. There are tons of references in the game to the movies like Spider-Man, the Spider-Man 2 movie and so many more. You'll feel that the game is repetitive as I mentioned, only once you finish the story. But other than that, it's a pretty fun game and I heavily recommend it. Now regarding the DLC, many people got really angry about the DLC because it was announced before the game was released. Like Insomniac finished the game early, so they announced the DLC after that, before it was even released. The season pass is called The City That Never Sleeps. There are 3 campaigns. They play the same, but they're basically connected to each other through a story, and it's about Hammerhead. Hammerhead is the main villain, and it's actually a pretty great story. I always like Hammerhead. I feel like he's underrated, but this game focuses on him more. The DLC packs, One problem with the DLC packs are the screwball missions. The screwball missions are basically you have to do a certain task like defeat a number of enemies within the time limit and defuse the bombs within the time limit and so on. While granted this was also in the main game but under Taskmaster, but then here the screwball missions are even way worse. Like someone heard that screwball mission in the main game was bad, so they tried to make mini missions for her. It's actually very annoying, but nevertheless the DLC packs are actually worth it, and I heavily recommend you play it only after you finish the main game. Like I rate Spider-Man 9 out of 10, and I rate Spider-Man The City That Never Sleep DLC an 8 out of 10. Now regarding the remastered, I haven't played it, but they did change Peter Parker. Look, I heard many reasons and they can say what they want, but there's no denying that they changed it to make him look more like Peter Parker from MCU. Tom Holland, It's a shame really, because the one in the PS4 version was unique. Oh well, with that, thank you guys for watching my video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you do, please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys next time for more.